First of all, get involved right now and help out by dropping a like and subscribing, because that makes the content reach many more supporters and helps a lot to keep bringing you breaking news and in-depth analysis about Manchester City. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. And let's dive straight into the most important information of the moment about the current giant of English football. The atmosphere around Manchester City today is a mix of tension, expectation, and major decisions ahead. The club is going through a phase in which performances on the pitch are directly linked to the transfer market and the physical condition of the squad. While they are competing for trophies on several fronts, they also need to make decisions that can define the direction of the season and even the future of some players. And one of the most mentioned names in this context is Nathan Ake. The Dutch defender finds himself in one of those decisive moments in a career where everything seems to be on the scales at the same time. He is not a stranger to City fans. He has already been an important part of title-winning campaigns, has produced solid performances in huge matches, but this current season has simply not taken off the way he imagined. Between minor injuries, loss of space, and changes in the defensive hierarchy, the landscape has changed a lot. Manchester City's defensive system has gone through adjustments, and right now, the pairing of Ruben Dias and Joško Gvardiol has been the most used and the most established. That has pushed Ake into a more secondary role, with few minutes and no real run of games. Most of his time on the pitch has come in domestic cups, in a sporadic way, and in the league he has almost always ended up as an option on the bench. For a player of his age, in his physical prime, and with the ambition to play in major competitions for both club and country, that weighs heavily. There is also a factor that increases the urgency: the Dutch national team. The coaching staff has made it clear in interviews that anyone who wants to be at major tournaments needs to be playing regularly. That puts Ake in a dilemma: stay in an extremely strong squad with a chance of trophies, but without enough minutes, or look for an environment where he plays week in, week out, and stays in the international spotlight. It is precisely in this gap that Barcelona come in. The Spanish club are facing a serious defensive problem after losing Andreas Christensen to a severe knee injury. The ligament issue is serious, rules the player out for a long period, and tears up part of the original planning. Hansi Flick needs someone who arrives ready, who quickly understands the playing model, and who brings security in decisive moments. That is why Nathan Ake's name is strongly mentioned behind the scenes. Ake has attributes that fit Barcelona's style: clean ball progression, sharp tactical awareness, composure under pressure, and versatility to play as a central defender or on the left side. He knows very well systems based on possession and building from the back, something essential for the Catalan club. Therefore, it is no surprise that reports indicate he would be open to the idea of playing in Spain, especially if that means more time on the pitch. The main issue is not technical. It is financial and structural. Barcelona, restricted by wage rules and their economic situation, prioritize a loan. Manchester City, on the other hand, a financially solid club with no need to offload players, prefer a permanent sale if they are really going to let the defender go. This difference in positions creates a stalemate. It is not just a matter of releasing him or not, but of how to do that without harming any of the parties involved. It is important to remember that Ake has a long contract, valid until 2027, which puts Manchester City in a position of strength in negotiations. The club do not need to rush. If they decide to let him go, they will probably want a package that includes guarantees, significant fees, and perhaps performance-related add-ons or future purchase clauses. Barcelona, on the other hand, are looking for creativity, a loan with an option, a conditional obligation, formulas that share the risk and ease the immediate financial hit. For City fans, it is a mixed feeling. On one hand, there is gratitude for what Ake has already done, memories of solid performances and his always professional attitude. On the other, there is a clear understanding that the squad is extremely competitive and the club rarely keep a player who is unhappy about his minutes if there is a good business opportunity. January promises to be a turning point for the center-back, whether he stays to fight for his place or starts a new chapter of his career in another European league. But while the market is boiling, the pitch is demanding its price. Recently, Manchester City played a match that perfectly symbolizes what this season has been like. Control in several spells, difficulties in killing the game off, and above all, concern with the medical department. The goalless draw away to Sunderland, besides being frustrating because of the failure to win, brought two new fitness issues for the squad. In a period with an intense sequence of fixtures in the Premier League, domestic cups and European competitions, any injury weighs as if it were multiplied by 3. Manchester City's squad is strong, but the demand to compete at a high level every 3 days is unforgiving. The manager has said this repeatedly. Managing fatigue and physical condition has become just as important as setting up the team tactically. In the clash with Sunderland, Nico Gonzalez felt his calf in the first half. Despite trying to manage the discomfort, he ended up being substituted at half-time. Rodri came on, returning to his holding midfield role and bringing order to the middle of the park, but the warning light stayed on for the youngster. Soon after, another blow. Chinho had to leave the pitch, opening space for Jeremy Doku. After the match, the initial assessment did not sound encouraging, heightening fans' anxiety. These problems come just on the eve of a decisive marathon. There are direct clashes in the Premier League, knockout games, international trips, difficult weather conditions, and opponents who raise their level at this stage of the season. When you look at the fixture list, it is easy to understand why every missing player causes so much concern. The margin for error shrinks, and rotation becomes limited. In this context, Manchester City are forced to test the depth of their squad even further. Youngsters are getting minutes. Players who were previously substitutes are becoming crucial, and any return from injury is treated almost like a new signing. A season that was already demanding now also depends on the club's ability to stop fitness setbacks, turning into full-blown crises. Alongside all that, another important movement is taking place behind the scenes. Clubs like Crystal Palace and Brentford are monitoring a City defender who has not yet featured this season, but is already attracting attention as a market asset. This is Juma Ba, a 19-year-old center-back, a Sierra Leone international, signed as a prospect for the future. He spent a loan spell at Nice in France, a learning period but without a definitive breakthrough. Even without having played for City's first team, the defender is seen as a player with potential to increase in value. The English club bought him for around £5 million and believe that, given the current interest within the Premier League, they can secure a considerable profit in a future transfer. That is why all options are on the table. Another loan, a permanent sale, or a deal with smart clauses such as buyback and a percentage of a future sale. Crystal Palace and Brentford are carefully assessing the situation because they need players who can fit into their systems quickly and improve with consistent minutes. For Ba, the priority is clear: to play. Being stuck on the fringes of a squad already built to win titles does not help his career. Therefore, the chance to play for mid-table Premier League clubs, facing the best forwards in the world every week, is seen as an important step. What stands out is how Manchester City manage this type of situation today. The club have adopted an extremely rational approach. If the door to the first team seems closed, they do a deal early, avoid devaluation, and keep mechanisms in place to profit from the player's growth elsewhere. This explains why so many players developed or signed young end up shining at other teams, with City benefiting financially from the process. With all this happening at the same time, Ake weighing up his future, injuries affecting the present, and youngsters like Ba possibly leaving the club, it becomes clear that Manchester City are going through a period of deep adjustment. It is not just about winning the next match, but about reshaping the squad, deciding who will be part of the next cycle, and how to keep the team competitive without losing financial and sporting control. Carrying on exactly from where we left off, it becomes clear that there is no single isolated theme surrounding Manchester City at this moment. Everything is connected. Nathan Ake's future, the new injuries, the crushing fixture list, the decisions regarding youngsters like Juma Ba, and the way the club intend to get through the next few months without losing competitiveness. When these pieces come together, it is obvious that we are talking about a period that can redefine a lot within the squad. Ake's situation, for example, is not limited to a simple stay or go. It is directly linked to the physical wear of the squad and the recent absences. If new injuries arise in defense, his staying could become practically non-negotiable. On the other hand, if everybody is fit and the opportunities remain scarce, the player's desire for more minutes may speak louder. The club need to balance the player's wishes, sporting needs, and the reality of the market. At the same time, the injuries against Sunderland and Crystal Palace expose the fragility of any planning in such long seasons. No matter how deep the squad is, when matches pile up, the risk increases exponentially. The medical staff, fitness work, and intelligent rotation become just as important as a big signing. That is when you understand why the manager avoids rushing returns and prefers to lose a player for one match rather than for 2 months. These forced absences also open up space for a very current issue at Manchester City: the role of youngsters. Names like Juma Ba represent a recurring dilemma. Keep them and drip-feed minutes, or move them on early so they can develop in a different environment while the club maintains financial control over their future. Crystal Palace and Brentford emerge precisely as destinations where this type of player can evolve without the immediate pressure for titles, but still with a high competitive level. At the center of all this is the schedule. It is enough to look at the run of fixtures to understand the scale of the challenge. Premier League, continental competitions, domestic cups, long trips, decisive matches in hostile stadiums, and games that practically allow no mental rest. It is a scenario that demands real depth, versatility, and players capable of performing more than one tactical role, something that further increases the value of players like Ake. That is why any departure now has to be viewed strategically. Letting an experienced defender go without having total certainty about the squad's physical condition can be a risk that is far too high. On the other hand, keeping a player who wants minutes and has a market can generate dissatisfaction and loss of value. City's board have shown exactly this cold, calculated profile, looking not only at the feeling of the moment, but also at the medium and long-term impacts. When you look at all the stories together, it is obvious that Manchester City find themselves at a crossroads typical of giant clubs. It is not just about buying and selling, but about managing careers, handling expectations, and keeping a balanced dressing room. Players want to play, national teams put pressure on for match rhythm, agents watch for opportunities, and other clubs circle City's squad knowing there are talented players with few minutes available. At the same time, none of this wipes out the sporting ambition. The club's objective remains to compete for and win trophies on all fronts. And that requires quick responses to adversity. The most recent injuries were a harsh reminder that the season does not forgive any relaxation. Any drop in focus, any rush in bringing a player back can cost points, league positions, and even progression in knockout ties. This is exactly where the supporter comes in as part of the story. The anxiety over injuries, the curiosity about Ake's future, the expectations around the youngsters, and the interest in moves such as a possible transfer of Juma Ba are all part of the emotional package for those who follow the club closely. Every piece of news has a direct impact on debates, analysis, and the way people view the direction of the season. If Ake's loan to Barcelona moves forward, it will be seen as a chance for the player to regain prominence and try to cement his place with the Dutch national team, while City will have to prove they can maintain defensive stability without him. If the deal stalls and he stays, there will be the opportunity to win his place back and once again become a key figure in big moments, something that has already happened before. In Juma Ba's case, any decision will clearly reflect the club's current philosophy. A sale with buyback clauses would confirm City's modern approach of turning talent into an asset without closing the door for the future. Another loan within the Premier League could serve as a final test to see whether he really is ready for a higher level. These are quiet decisions, but they shape tomorrow's squad. Finally, there is a point that ties everything together. Over the last few years, Manchester City have shown that they know how to reinvent themselves within the same season. Even under pressure, Even with absences and ongoing negotiations, the club usually find internal solutions, make tactical adjustments, and get the best out of players who previously looked like supporting characters. And it is exactly this ability to adapt that will be tested once again. The combination of a hectic market, a squad at its physical limit, and big decisions about the future of some players creates an intense but also fascinating scenario. Every step taken in January can directly influence what we will see in the decisive stages of the season, and anyone who follows Manchester City closely knows that nothing is small when it comes to this club. Every move matters, every injury weighs, every deal can be decisive. If you have made it this far, it is because you really live Manchester City intensely. So take the opportunity now, leave a like and subscribe, because that massively strengthens the work and guarantees that you will keep receiving every update, analysis, and piece of news about the club. Do you want me to bring more parts, expanding the script even further and digging deeper into the next chapters of these stories?